I stood before my bedroom mirror, my fingers trembling as I adjusted the simple silver pendant around my neck. At 62, I still felt like a young woman in some ways, clinging to the hope that today my son Daniel's award ceremony would bridge the chasm that had grown between us. The pendant was a gift from my late husband, Michael, given to me on our 10th anniversary. Its modest shine a reminder of the life we built before cancer took him 9 years ago. I'd raised Daniel alone since he was 16, navigating his anger, his grief, and his ambition, all while trying to keep our small world from crumbling. Today's the day. Michael, I murmured to his photo on the dresser, my voice barely above a whisper. He'll see me today. He'll understand everything I've done. The words felt like a fragile prayer, heavy with longing. My stomach twisted with nerves, and I managed only a sip of tea, the cup cold in my hands. I'd been up since dawn, too anxious to sleep, replaying every moment I'd spent building a life for Daniel, hoping this evening would be the moment he'd finally look at me with gratitude instead of resentment. The phone buzzed, shattering the quiet. It was Sarah, my oldest friend and former colleague from the library where I'd worked for 25 years. "Ellen, you okay?" she asked, her voice warm but cautious. "Big night tonight. You ready?" "I think so," I said, forcing a smile into my voice. "I feel like today could change things. Like maybe he'll finally see me." Sarah didn't respond right away. She knew the distance between Daniel and me, how it had started small. A missed dinner here, a curt phone call there, and grown into a wall of silence over the past 4 years, ever since he'd landed his big tech job in Seattle. "Just don't expect too much," she said finally. "Protect yourself, okay?" But I couldn't help it. I'd pictured the evening in vivid detail. Daniel stepping onto the stage to accept his Innovator of the Year award, his eyes finding me in the crowd, a nod of acknowledgement, maybe a smile. I imagined him mentioning me in his speech, thanking me for the years I'd worked double shifts at the library, for the second mortgage I'd taken to fund his coding boot camp, for the nights I'd stayed up helping with college applications. I'd bought a gift, a sleek leather journal engraved with his initials, to hold his ideas, his dreams. The card read, "To my brilliant son, may you always know how proud I am. Love, Mom." The Uber arrived outside my modest Seattle apartment, and I smoothed my emerald green dress, chosen because Daniel once said the color suited me. The venue was a grand convention center downtown, all glass and steel, buzzing with tech executives, investors, and journalists. Fairy lights twinkled against the evening sky, and the air smelled of rain and possibility. I arrived early, clutching the gift bag, hoping to catch Daniel before the ceremony, to wish him luck, to feel like part of his world again dotted the entrance. A young woman with a tablet and a polished smile stopped me. "Name, please." "Ellen Harper." "I'm Daniel Harper's mother," I said, my chest swelling with pride. She scrolled through her list, her expression neutral. "You're at table 18, ma'am?" "Near the back, by the bar." My heart sank. Table 18? I'm his mother. Shouldn't I be closer to the stage? She checked again, her face unchanging. "No mistake, ma'am. That's the seating arrangement. If you have concerns, you need to speak with Mr. Harper directly." I nodded, swallowing the sting. Table 18. Near the back. As if I were an afterthought, not the woman who'd given up her savings, her sleep, her dreams to get him here. I made my way through the crowd, past tables of tech brothers in tailored suits, past Daniel's colleagues laughing over cocktails, past his girlfriend, Mia, whom I'd met only once, surrounded by her entourage near the front. Table 18 was tucked behind a pillar, half hidden, its occupants a mix of distant acquaintances and plus ones who looked as out of place as I felt. "You with the awardee?" A gray-haired man to my left asked, adjusting his tie. "I'm Daniel's mother," I said, forcing a smile. His eyebrows rose. "And you're back here? That's surprising." I had no response. The confusion in his eyes mirrored my own. I set the gift bag under my chair and watched as the ceremony began, trying to push down the ache in my chest. Daniel walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, his navy suit crisp, his smile confident. He looked every bit the prodigy the tech world adored my boy. Now 30, who'd once clung to me during thunderstorms, who'd written me poems for Mother's Day. For a moment, I saw that child again and I forgot the seating arrangement, forgot the years of silence. I was just grateful to be here witnessing his triumph, but he didn't look my way. Not once. His eyes scanned the front tables, lingering on Mia, his colleagues, the investors who'd backed his startup. I told myself it was fine. He was nervous, focused. There'd be time later at the reception to connect. The ceremony ended, and the room shifted into a lively reception, music pulsing through the speakers. I lingered near table 18, watching Daniel work the room, shaking hands, laughing with strangers who hung on his every word. I clutched the gift bag, waiting for a chance to approach him to say something, anything. But he was always surrounded, always moving, always just out of reach. Beautiful event, isn't it? A woman across from me said, her voice kind but awkward. You must be so proud. I am, I said, my throat tight. Proud of the boy who taught himself to code on a second-hand laptop I bought at a pawn shop. Proud of the young man who'd built a company from nothing, who'd made headlines at 28. But pride felt empty when it wasn't shared. When the person you poured your life into treated you like a ghost, the MC's voice cut through the chatter. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Innovator of the Year, Daniel Harper, for a few words. The crowd erupted as Daniel took the stage, his presence commanding. Thank you all for being here, he began, his voice smooth and assured. This award means everything to me, but it's not just mine. It belongs to my team, my mentors, my investors who believed in me from day one. He paused, smiling at Mia, who beamed back. And to Mia, who's been my rock, my inspiration, my everything, my heart raced. This was it, the moment he'd mentioned me. He had to. I leaned forward, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. I've learned that success isn't just about hard work, Daniel continued. It's about surrounding yourself with people who push you forward, who share your vision, who don't hold you back with their doubts or their baggage. The words hit like a slap. Hold him back? I never held him back. I'd worked nights at the library, taken cleaning jobs on weekends, sold Michael's old vinyl collection to pay for his first computer. I'd driven him to every coding competition, cheered at every small victory, even when he stopped noticing. Family isn't just who you're born to, Daniel said, his voice growing sharper. It's who you choose. The people who lift you up, who get what you're trying to build, who don't drag you down with their neediness or their expectations. The room was quiet now, the air thick with tension. I felt eyes on me, whispers rippling through the crowd. My face burned and my hands shook as I gripped the edge of the table. He was talking about me. My son, the child I'd raised alone, was painting me as a burden, an obstacle to his shining life. And so, Daniel said, raising his glass, to the people who matter, the ones who've helped me become who I am today. Thank you. The applause was deafening, but it felt like a wall closing in. I sat frozen, the gift bag at my feet, now a painful reminder of my foolishness. He hadn't even looked at me. Not once. And then, as the clapping died down, he spoke again, his voice cutting through the noise. Mom, I think it's time you left. The words landed like a physical blow. 200 people turned to stare, their eyes pinning me to my chair. A woman gasped nearby. Someone whispered, "That's his mother?" I felt the room spin, the lights too bright, the air too thin. My son had just dismissed me in front of everyone, as if I were nothing more than an unwanted guest at his moment of glory. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady, trying to gather the scraps of my dignity. The gift bag stayed under the table. There was no point in giving it now. I took a step toward the exit, my vision blurring with tears, when a voice stopped me. Hold on. It was Mia, standing up from her seat near the stage. Her voice was steady, but there was a fire in her eyes that made the room go still. She stepped onto the stage, taking the microphone from Daniel's hand. He looked at her, confused, his confident facade cracking. "Before Ellen leaves," Mia said, her tone sharp, "there's something you all need to hear." Daniel reached for her arm. "Mia, what are you doing?" "Sit down." She pulled away, her gaze locked on him. "No, Daniel. You don't get to do this." "Not tonight." "Not to her." The crowd murmured, sensing the shift. I stood frozen, halfway to the door. My heart pounding. Mia turned to the audience, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. "I've been with Daniel for 2 years. He's brilliant, driven, everything you see tonight. But there's a story he's never told you, one he's buried because it doesn't fit his narrative of the self-made genius." Daniel's face paled. "Mia, stop. This isn't the place." "Then where, Daniel?" She snapped, turning to him. "When were you going to tell the truth?" "Because I know it now and I can't stay silent." She faced the crowd again. 6 months ago, I started noticing inconsistencies in what Daniel told me about his past. He said his mother was controlling, that she didn't support his dreams, that she was a weight he had to escape to succeed. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? But something felt off, so I dug deeper. The room was silent, every eye on Mia. I felt Sarah's hand on my arm, anchoring me. I talked to people who knew Ellen, Mia continued. Her coworkers at the library, her neighbors, her friend Sarah, and I learned the real story, the one Daniel's too ashamed to admit. Her voice softened, but it carried a weight that filled the room. Ellen Harper was widowed at 53, left with a teenage son and a pile of medical bills from her husband's cancer treatment. She worked 2 jobs, librarian by day, cleaner by night, to keep their home. She sold her husband's prized record collection, her own jewelry, anything of value to pay for Daniel's coding bootcamp. She took out a second mortgage to cover his college applications, his travel to tech competitions. She ate leftovers and wore the same coat for 10 years so he could have a new laptop. Tears stung my eyes, but I couldn't move. Mia's words were unraveling years of silence, exposing truths I'd buried to protect Daniel's pride. When Daniel got into Stanford, Ellen worked weekends at a diner to send him spending money, Mia said, her voice breaking. She never told him how she struggled. She never let him see her cry. And when he landed his first big job, do you know what he did? He moved to a luxury condo and told his mother he needed space, that her calls were intrusive, her visits inconvenient, that she didn't fit into his new life. The crowd gasped, whispers spreading like wildfire. Daniel stood motionless, his face a mask of shock and shame. Mia turned to me, her eyes glistening. Ellen, I met you only once. At a dinner Daniel barely invited you to. He warned me you'd be difficult, clingy. But you were kind, quiet, proud. I didn't understand then, but I do now. I'm so sorry I believed his lies. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, the weight of her words too much. Mia faced Daniel again, her voice steady but fierce. Last month, I found out Ellen had a health scare. Chest pains at work, bad enough to land her in the ER. She thought she was having a heart attack, just like her husband. She was alone, terrified, hooked up to machines. And do you know who she called? Not you, Daniel. She called Sarah. She told Sarah not to bother you because you were too busy building your empire. The silence was deafening. I closed my eyes, remembering that night, the cold hospital bed, the fear, the loneliness. I hadn't wanted to burden him. Even then, I can't be with someone who treats their mother like this, Mia said, her voice breaking. Someone who worse is the person who gave them everything. You're not the man I thought you were, Daniel. She set the microphone down, the sound echoing like a gavel. Then she walked off the stage, straight toward me. The room erupted in chaos whispers, gasps, phones being pulled out to capture the moment. Daniel stood frozen, his award gleaming uselessly in his hand. Mia reached me, her eyes full of regret. Ellen, I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. Let me get you out of here. Sarah was at my side in an instant, her arm around me. Come on, Ellen, let's go. But before we can move, Daniel's voice cut through the noise. Mom, wait. He was off the stage now, pushing through the crowd, his face pale, his eyes wide with something I hadn't seen in years of vulnerability. Please, don't go. I stopped, my heart torn between anger and the love that had never wavered, not even now. Why, Daniel? Why should I stay? He stood before me, the confident tech star gone, replaced by a boy who looked lost. I didn't know. I didn't see it. I was wrong. About everything. The crowd watched, hushed as if the world had narrowed to just us. Mia stood nearby, her expression unreadable. Sarah squeezed my hand, giving me strength. You didn't know? I said, my voice shaking but steady. I worked my hands raw for you. I gave up everything, my comfort, my dreams, my life, so you could have yours. And you called me a burden. You told the world I held you back. Tears streamed down his face, and for the first time in years, I saw my son, not the stranger he'd become. I was ashamed, he whispered. Not of you, of me. I didn't want anyone to know how hard it was, how much you did, because it made me feel small. I thought if I distanced myself, I could be someone bigger. The honesty cut deeper than his earlier words. I wanted to reach for him, to hold him like I had when he was small, but I couldn't. Not yet. You didn't just distance yourself, Daniel. You erased me. He nodded, his shoulders slumping. I know, and I don't know how to fix it. But I want to try. Please, Mom, give me a chance. I looked at him, at the boy I'd loved through every sacrifice, and then at Mia, who'd risked her own heart to speak the truth. The crowd was still watching, but their eyes no longer felt like a weight. They felt like witnesses to a moment that could change everything or nothing. I don't know if I can, I said, my voice barely audible. But I'll think about it. Sarah guided me toward the exit, Mia following close behind. The cool Seattle air hit my face as we stepped outside, cleansing the weight of the evening. A car was waiting. Mia had arranged it, her final act of kindness. As we drove away, I saw Daniel standing alone in the parking lot, his silhouette small against the glowing venue. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to run to him back in my apartment. I sat on the couch, the silver pendant still around my neck. The gift bag sat unopened on the table. I'd retrieve it later. Or maybe I wouldn't. My phone buzzed with notifications. Voicemails from journalists. Texts from strangers who'd seen videos of Mia's speech online. The story was already spreading. Tech stars, mother humiliated, girlfriend exposes truth. I turned it off, needing silence. Sarah stayed with me, making tea I didn't drink. What now? She asked gently. I don't know, I said, staring at Michael's photo. I loved him so much, Sarah. I still do. But I can't keep giving to someone who takes me for granted. She nodded, squeezing my hand. You don't have to decide tonight. Or tomorrow. You've got time. Time? It was something I'd given Daniel all my life, but now maybe it was mine to reclaim. I didn't know if I'd answer when he called, or if I'd ever feel ready to forgive. But for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of freedom, a chance to live for myself, not just for the son who'd forgotten me. The days that followed were a blur. The video went viral, millions of views piling up, strangers debating my pain online. Reporters knocked on my door, but I stayed quiet, letting the world spin without me. Daniel left voicemails, his voice raw with regret, promising to change, to make things right. I listened but didn't respond. Not yet. One evening, Mia came by, her eyes tired but kind. I ended things with Daniel, she said. But I want you to know you're not alone. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. I thanked her, my heart heavy but grateful. She'd given me something Daniel never had. The truth, spoken without fear, in front of everyone. It was a gift I didn't know how to repay. As I sat alone that night, I looked at Michael's photo again. What would you do? I asked. But he didn't answer, and maybe that was the point. The choice was mine now, whether to open the door to Daniel again or to walk forward on my own. For the first time, I felt ready to choose, but the choice wasn't easy. A week later, a letter arrived, handwritten in Daniel's familiar scrawl. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting excuses, but instead found something else. "Mom," it began, "I've spent days replaying that night, your face, Mia's words. I see now how blind I was, how cruel. You gave me everything, and I threw it away because I was scared of looking weak. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm going to try to earn it. I'm starting therapy. I'm stepping back from work to figure out who I am without the spotlight. I want to be the son you deserve if you'll let me." I read it again, tears falling onto the paper. Part of me wanted to call him to say we could start over. But another part, the part that had carried his rejection for years, needed time. I folded the letter and placed it beside Michael's photo, a small step toward possibility, but not a promise. Ellen's journey shows us the power of sacrifice and the courage it takes to face the truth. Has a moment of honesty ever changed your life? Or have you felt unseen by someone you love? Drop your story in the comments. We're reading every one. If Shadows of Sacrifice moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it because stories like this remind us what really matters. Let's keep the conversation going.